welcome to the Listen.Better interview today, Shalini. Really excited to see you, and thank you so much for making time. I know you have a very, very busy role at Arup. But just give me a little pen portrait of your career, your international career to date, and what have been some of the highlights or significant projects you've been involved in.
Hi, Annabelle. Good morning. And thank you so much. It's an absolute honor to be on your podcast, if I can call it that. I've been on a few podcasts, and I think it's an interesting podcast. I know we've been trying to get a date in the diary, for this for a while. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your time too. Highlights of my international career. Oh gosh, wow. I think I've been really fortunate, if I can say, to have had really, really good opportunities in my sort of, 2 decades of my career working internationally. I worked across multiple sectors, across, multiple cultures, from the start. If I really go back 2 decades, started working in media. Not many people know about that, to be honest, from working behind the camera, from script writing to in front of the camera as well. But I've been on, on national TV, to also working on the radio and having done voiceovers for various documentaries for the national television, to my international secondment, moving from Dubai to the UK, very early in my internal comms career in the 20s, to working on a global employee engagement project, working across 15 countries and 100K audience, which was massive. It was a great opportunity. To then moving over to the banking industry during the most defining decade, during the financial crisis, 2008 onwards, delivering some of the most significant transformation and change programs, people campaigns, setting up measurement frameworks, working with the C-suite experience, of working with the C-suite leaders, then leadership comms for 40, 50,000 people across UK, India, Poland, and some of those geographies, to just a couple of years back working in the telecom sector for a couple of years, working for 2 CEOs during my tenure, 2 sets of strategy launches, for 15,000 people, award delivering and designing the award-winning kind of people campaigns. And during that time, I was also selected for a fast-track leadership program myself, which was quite a turning point in my career. To now working at Arup, which is a regional role looking after communications, internal communications for UK, India, Middle East, and Africa. And really proud to work for Arup. We are a Glassdoor 2023 top 10 best places to work as rated by colleagues, and I lead leadership and change comms here. So I've been pretty blessed, I think. I'm really proud of my journey.
That's a fantastic roundup, and that's actually spawned about 100 questions I'd love to ask you. We of course only have 20 minutes or so. So I want to hone straight in. You mentioned a couple of very large audiences, 100K, 15K. How on earth do you set about that? It seems like you really relish collaborating across territories, but what's your approach? How do you navigate cultural nuances to make sure you achieve goals?
Do you know what? I think navigating cultural nuances comes really naturally to you if you're from the Indian subcontinent, to be honest. Officially there are some 22 languages, people from all religions and backgrounds, 100 plus dialects, I think, and just 100 plus kind of, sub-languages, the culture from north to south, east and west. It's just so diverse, I think. So I think, as an internal communicator, more so to your question, learning to kind of, navigate the cultural nuances side of it. I think, you're mentally sort of, positioned to be able to think like that. How do I think differently for different audience? And you take a step back and think, yes, it's a different, diverse audience. I do need to, think differently. And some of the things I think, from learning of having worked in the different, countries, first and foremost, I think it's genuinely being interested in your audience, is being interested in your people, because internal comms, we're in the business of people, right? And, having lived in an eclectic, multi eclectic city like, Dubai, sometimes it's as simple to learn how to greet people in the local language and do it respectfully, I think. And I think it's those little things that matter. Secondly, I think not just as an internal communicator, even sort of, a leader or anybody working in a different country or in a multinational organization, it's listen more than you tell. So it's, like they say, it's seek to understand before you are understood. learn to listen to nonverbal cues and how you sort of interpret those are quite important. Interestingly, I just did a piece for the IOIC's Voice magazine recently, just on this very topic, and where I mentioned about the differences in the Eastern cultures and the Western cultures. And I'd mentioned there that the Eastern cultures, most of them are very high context cultures. If you think about it, comms is more indirect in the sense that, nonverbal comms is more powerful. You want to look for body language, you want to look for eye contact. The work relationships are more around hierarchies. They are more formal. So i.e., certain types of comms or way of saying certain things could be misinterpreted as rude, for example. Whereas in the Western cultures, low context cultures, words are key. The impact is less sort of, on nonverbal cues than on the words. And it's less hierarchical, so it's less formal. So I guess sort of, it's understanding of some of those, the cultural context, also really helps from a communications perspective. And I think, thinking about that, it's just, there's more in common in us than divides us, to be honest. When I came here on an international secondment to the UK some 18 years back, I remember the first, the project that I did for a year was navigating different time zones across different countries. It was right from Canada to Latvian countries to working, East Asia to Australasia, 15 different countries and 22 internal comms and HR directors at that point of time. And I think it was really important to be open to feedback on what was working or not working for them, rather than, working in an HQ, leading an engagement plan. You're sort of, that is kind of, written in sand, and, that's to be sort of followed. So yeah, open to feedback and learning the local sort of, nuances and how they would tweak or even translate certain, certain pieces of comms or key messages in their languages was quite important, I think.
That's such an interesting number of points you've raised there. So learning how to greet, I love that from an anthropology point of view. That was my original training, to really get under the skin of what somebody else, how they would respond to things. Listening more, clearly, music to my ears, non-verbal cues, the body language, being open to feedback and receptive, and really understanding the context that your audiences are living and working in. So a fabulous list there. I think that will feature in the blog. You mentioned you were fast-tracked on the Leaders of the Future programme, and I imagine now at this stage in your career you are now in turn mentoring others. Is that something you enjoy, and how has that shaped your professional growth, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, mentoring has been hugely important to me in my career. And, I strongly believe and think that, rarely, and with respect, I say rarely, there is nothing in life that somebody else hasn't done. So why not, learn from others' experiences? And to be honest, when I look back at my career, I learned this quite late because, when you're young, you sort of, want to kind of, listen to yourself and, take your own course and, do your own things. But I think, I enrolled myself in a mentoring program a couple of years back myself. This is pre-leadership program, where as being part of that, I came across many doors that I didn't know even existed that were suddenly opened for me. And I guess, that really sort of helped me step outside of my comfort zone, putting myself out there, being a visible role model as an Indian British woman who's not born here, and that really sort of helped me step up my confidence. And, since then, I've sort of been speaking on panels, writing blogs, I've recently chaired an industry conference as well. I've been a member of the CIPR committee, the IOIC ambassador, and all of that. And if I don't want to be the change that I want to see, then I guess there's, I guess there's no point me being a leader. And that's one of the reasons I really enjoy mentoring. So I have been attached to the Taylor Bennett Foundation from a previous organization I was working, where we had the opportunity of, mentoring the underrepresented. And I also, mentor with the IOIC. And I think it was this experience of me going through, my own mentoring journey that got me into paying it forward. And I think, paying it forward journey, you'll notice that the chain expands exponentially if you kick it off. And I've said this, I think, in a previous podcast, but I love this phrase so much. So I'll repeat it and I'll say that it costs nothing for one candle to light another candle. So I do that with my mentees. I'm in touch with so many of them, over a period of few years. And, it's really nice to see when they come up to me and they talk to me about, how they've actually started mentoring themselves and the benefits that they see. And I'm always learning from my mentors too, from my mentees too, as well. So, it's a two-way street.
I love that image of doors were open that you didn't know existed as doors. And I wonder how many people out there coming up through their career perhaps might have that experience going forward, but how mentors can show the door and then open it for them. Really lovely.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned representation and a little bit how that's important to you, but can you just dig into that a bit more? Why is it so important in the communications industry?
So I think two things there, Annabelle, from a representation perspective. I think, one, if you think from a business perspective, right, from an internal comms perspective, we must reflect the diverse communities that we operate in, the diverse audience, that we serve, that we work for, write messages for, to be able to effectively connect and represent the needs and perspectives of our stakeholders, of our audience. It's hugely important, to be represented in the industry. And when I talk about representation, I mean representation in terms of diverse backgrounds, experience, perspectives, and then, you have the better connection with people. And once you have that better connection with people, it leads to better business outcomes, which leads to positive reputation for the business, credibility for the business, and therefore gives competitive advantage for the business as well. So that's one. And second, and it's second by no means, in that order, is the challenge for me when I came into the industry was not seeing leaders like me at the top table in the comms industry. So I guess, it makes you think, like, do I belong in this space? Is this place inclusive for me? Is this inclusive enough for me? And I guess, you become what you see. So that's one of the reasons why I think, representation is really important. It's going back to my point about, mentoring, as, when I mentor, other sort of, young grads, who come up to me and say, it's so amazing to see, somebody like you who looks like us, who is, a senior person in the internal comms industry. If you can, so can we. And I think that's really heartening to hear. So I think as internal comms leaders, we need to be that change to drive, because, we are often working on leaders' messages. We have an influence on the key messages across, whatever work that we do in this space. And it's not about turning a blind eye. It's about sort of, just being the change you want to be and making that impact, I think, whether you're working with the HR folks, on talking about the recruitment, whether it's sort of, inclusive images being used, something as tactical as that within an organization. It's representation that goes, right across the board, I think, that is hugely important for the industry. So yeah, I think that's one of that's the two most important reasons, I think.
Really articulate and very inspiring. Thank you. CIPR, congratulations on your chartership, recent completing a chartership. Tell us about that process and how that's played into your CPD.
Oh gosh, thank you. Absolutely chuffed to have got, chartership under my belt. It has been on my CPD plan for a long, long time. And I'm glad I sort of, got it done this year. This year was the year, I think. So for a chartership, for the CIPR chartership, you're assessed in 3 areas: strategy, leadership, and ethics are the 3 areas. And it takes the form of a group discussion. I was in a small group of 4, and you're assessed by senior leaders in the industry, which is best thing, because you're assessed by your own peers who understand the challenges of the industry. And so you're expected to sort of, talk through proof points, using proof point that you've delivered in your career. Think smart, when you think about proof points. You're expected to have an understanding of certain comms models, how you've applied that in your own career throughout. You're expected to have a unique view on external industry outlook, not just case studies within your industry, but case studies kind of outside in the FMCG sector, elsewhere. And because it's a group discussion, I think it's a really good format. I really like the format because you can build on others' points, as well as you can stand out yourself and give a unique point, or if it's a controversial point as well, so why not? But it's an intense, challenging 1 full day. And I think it deserves that. It deserves the rigor because of the chartership. And what you get kind of, at the end of it, you are a chartered professional, and I'm proud to say that I'm part of a select group of just over 500 people across the globe who are chartered by CIPR. So professional accreditation that proves your professional competence. So I'd encourage everybody to, who are in the PR industry to go ahead and sign up.
Fantastic. Really, really well done. What have you been most proud of in your work life to date, if you were to blow your own trumpet?
Oh gosh, haven't I done that enough already? There are a number of things, and I don't say it's one thing. I think it's quite interesting, Annabelle, because as women, we don't feel comfortable in taking the risk of doing a job unless we feel 10 by 10, on skills, and we think, on skills or on experience and everything. And I think sort of, looking back, every time I've heard you can't do this, I've just gone ahead and I've done that. Right. Yeah. Right from the time of being told you can't be on the radio because you've got a lisp, you can't be on the TV because you look a certain way, I've gone ahead and I've done that. Right. I've been told, you haven't taken a STEM career, science subjects, you can't migrate to the UK, you can't have a job in the UK, you're not an engineer, and, so on and so forth. But look, I mean, the international secondment opportunity came up, it was my dream to live and work in London, and given my also my grandparents' history of London many, decades back. I got chosen for the international secondment, as part of a big global candidate pool, and I've done that. People said, don't work in financial services, post-financial services, during the financial services crisis. And that was my best decade of working in financial services. I think, the best part of my career, internal comms career, everything that I've learned has been, that defining decade. So I've done that. Post that, people said, don't change the industry, financial services industry, won't look good on your CV. But I moved to telecoms, and now I'm in professional services, doing sort of regional comms. And I just think I'm just proud of all these experiences. They've just enriched my career. They've made me uniquely who I am, whether it's been different countries, different sectors, TV, radio, public relations, internal comms. I've been there and I've done that. I mean, how many people can say that?
My goodness, what next though? We'll have to save that for another interview, but one last question before we wrap up. What advice would you have given to your younger self? And it sounds like you've really mapped out a fabulous career track, but if there's anything you would have done differently or more of, what would it be?
I would say don't let your self-doubt gremlins creep in. Let go of your limiting beliefs. Life is just too short to care about what other people think about you. The fear of being judged, I think, that we had as our younger selves. We probably still do a little bit. I guess that's the imposter syndrome that, kind of keeps creeping in, the gremlin of imposter syndrome. But it's not, it's not worth it. It's really not worth it. It just prevents you from seeking bold opportunities. So yeah, just go ahead. And as I say, just do it.
I love that. That's such a positive note to finish on. Let go of the self-doubt. Don't let those gremlins in. That is the message that I'm going to take through for the rest of my week. And hopefully our viewers will also benefit from that positive message. Thank you so much for your time today. And very good summer ahead. And I hope to see you in person in real life one of these days.
Oh, thank you, Annabelle. Really great pleasure to speak to you this morning.